From the Vox Popular Studios in Miami Lakes, we bring you the Miami Lakes Business Podcast. And today we have dear friends and members of the chamber, of course, the Snow family. Gary and Marisa, the owners of Snow's Jewelries here on Main Street. And they're celebrating this month. They're celebrating their 65th year in business and 40 years here in Miami Lakes. So welcome, Gary, and welcome, Marisa.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Having
Good
us.
to have you here. Good to have you here. And as part of this celebration, what's happening in Snow's Jewelry? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of Snow's Jewelry?
Well, I can do that for you, yes. Well, the business was started officially in 1958, my mom and my dad. But just to give you a little history on the background of it, my dad was in the service, and he met my mother at a, believe it or not, a USO dance. And he was in Fort Dix, if I'm not mistaken, in New Jersey. Met my mother in Asbury Park, and they hit it off right away, and they were married in 1943, and he was shipped off to England. My dad was attached to B-24s. He was in the 8th Air Force, and although he never really talked about it, but he was in England, and when he left, my mom was, I think, about 6 months pregnant, and when he came back in late 1945, he met his son for the first time, and eventually I came along, 1949, and for some reason or another I couldn't take the cold weather, so my mother shipped me to my grandmother, and in Miami, and got well. I was running on the beach and whatnot, and my grandmother called my dad, and he said, "You need to move down. Your son is running up and down the beach here. He's fine." And so they made the big move in late 1950. My kid brother was born in 51. He was born here. And then they just grew. My dad had to get a job after the service because he injured his feet. So the GI Bill sent him to the Bulliva School for Watchmaking, which still exists today, And so he came to Florida, and he worked for different jewelers through the years. The last one he worked for was in Miami Springs. And he always told me the story that when the owner would make a sale, he ran to the bar to celebrate and had a drink. So
that's a good way of celebrating.
Yeah. But what happened, he didn't pay my dad for several weeks. And my dad says, I got 3 kids. You owe me so much money, and I'm going to take it out in merchandise. Okay. At the same time, my mother was working on 79th Street at a shopping center in Miami near Biscayne Boulevard selling dresses. And back in the day, she went door to door selling Avon, which Avon had like costume jewelry. So they eventually went into business for themselves, and they had their jewelry on a kitchen table, believe it or not. They got a safe from the local priest at Immaculate Conception in Hialeah, and they opened up on Palm Avenue, just where it used to be called Municipal Auditorium. Now it's called Mylander Auditorium, in a little store. And about a year later, they had got a spot next to a food fair store on Palm Avenue and 53rd Street, a shopping center there. And they were there from 1959 to 1969. And my brothers and I all grew up behind a counter. And when I came back from college, I came back into the store full-time in 1972. But in the meantime, in 1969, we moved to West 49th Street. At that time, there was a Kmart Plaza, and it was east of the Westland Mall, which really wasn't built till 72. And business took off, And my brother, Eddie, who now has a store in Coral Gables, he was with us till 1974, 75, and then he split off, and he's in Miracle Mile. He's actually on his 4th location in Miracle Mile now. And then we had an opportunity to move to Miami Lakes, and we signed a lease in 1983 with the Graham Companies. And we were able to open the store a few months after that. So we've been in Miami Lakes on Main Street 40 years. We're celebrating. We're the original, still there. Everybody has come after us. We've seen changes like you wouldn't believe. Good days, bad days, the recessions, the banking crisis, and we're still here, you know. And now I'm second generation. Marissa has come into the business in 2009. She's third generation. And about a year or two ago, I told her, it's yours. You know, I'll be with you and as long as I can be there. But she calls the shots now. She does all the inventory buying. I'm still busy. I do all the books and things like that. And I still wait on people. But basically, I've turned it over to her, and she has turned the store around. We're doing so much better because of her, you know.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. You know, when businesses are passed on,
Yes.
you know, to the next generation, and there is somebody there in that generation that is interested in the business,
Yeah.
and you know, and just carries forward and carries on. And Marissa, you're very young.
Yes.
I know you're in your 30s, so what made you? Because I'm sure you could have chosen any
Anything.
career
Yeah.
that you know that you wanted, and what made you really start with your dad in the business?
I don't know. I came in kind of like part-time situation as well. I wasn't planning to stay. I was like, I'm not going to work in the family business. But, you know, as I was there and I just saw, you know, kind of the blood, sweat, and tears of like what I grew up on, you know, I didn't know how I was getting to eat the way I was eating and get to play all the sports and travel and do all these great things. But then I really got to see, and I was like, this is actually pretty cool, you know, and how so many people come in and they're not just customers, they're friends. And, you know, the whole time I was like, oh, that's a friend. It's like, no, I met them through the store. They became friends. And so how deep rooted, you know, my dad's connections are in the community, and it's a nice community. And so that just grew into me working more hours and making more changes and just growing more passion for the business and for keeping the family business, you know, because if I don't do it, there isn't anyone else, you know. But not just for that reason, but really, really enjoying what I do and being in this community, in this town.
All right, so that is great.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the merchandise that you sell, because I'm sure that customers that
Yeah.
may listen to this podcast will want to hear that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's changed quite a bit too since I've come in also. You know, from even just trends, what we were selling, we used to be a very big watch store. We're not a very big watch store as much anymore. We do sell Bulova, we do sell Seiko, we do get certified used luxury brand watches, you know, Cartier, Rolex. We work with watch brokers, so we can get a lot of different watches depending on what's available. We do service watches, luxury brand watches. We have a certified watchmaker to work on all of that. We give you an estimate. So that's also a really big part of our business, not just merchandise. Engagement rings, we've been doing a lot more custom bridal that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. So we have a local manufacturer that we work with. I help in the design process, and we get it done so that people can have their dream engagement ring or wedding band. And that goes for men and women.
That's wonderful.
Because men are now coming in and they're like, I don't want the boring band. I want something different, you know? Or they'll have this idea that they saw that's unique to them and their story, and we'll create it and make it come to light. Two other big brands that we're selling right now is a brand called Shy Collection, Shy Jewelry. And that's a 14 karat gold, so white gold, yellow gold, rose gold with diamond line that does very well for us. It's fashion. This is actually a necklace from them. But we do really well with that. It's just really on point with what's trending and what's in fashion, and it's reasonably priced, so it's not, you're still getting a nice luxury item without paying over price, you know. We also have the Tessento line, which I know you're familiar with. That's
my wife's
loves
favorite.
it.
She has a collection of Tessentos.
Yeah. So that's a silver line. But that's kind of like our I don't want to say high end, but it's made very well. It's a high quality, and it's rhodium plated, so it won't tarnish. And that's also good for people who have silver allergies. So people who have silver allergies, if you have this rhodium coating on top of the jewelry, they usually don't have an allergy to it.
Right.
I mean, we haven't had any issues with it. So that's a nice option too, and it makes a great option for gifts. It has a nice price point. And of course, we have other stuff too. We've got colored gemstones. We've got pearls, and just we have other little vendors that we work with, which I think is nice because it's kind of more of a boutique setting where if you see it, you like it, you ought to get it because we probably won't be able to get it again. Or maybe we can get it one more time, but that's kind of it because it's coming more from a smaller designer or a smaller vendor. So we've got some of the big stuff, but a lot of things that we work, with smaller vendors too.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful to see family engaged, in
Yeah.
the same business. And I've known you, Gary, for many years.
You're my
We're
neighbor.
neighbors. We're
Neighbor.
neighbors here in Miami Lakes and Lake Cynthia for
Sure.
many years. We see each other when we walk through, and you're walking or I'm walking or whatever.
Right.
We always see each other somewhere. You drive one of our
Two of your
vehicles
cars.
too, and
Me
service
too.
the vehicle, and
Guilty.
you too, right? Right. And it's wonderful. I go back. I remember your dad
Right.
going to the first store that I worked in many years ago, back in 1969, 1970,
Wow.
with his white Rolls Royce.
Oh yeah.
Now that was a promotion we had
Yeah.
for a reasonable price. If you bought a bridal set, we would chauffeur you in a Rolls Royce, which honestly was my older brother's idea, and it took off very well. The only trouble was that we needed a reliable driver, and I drove the car for the first 2 years.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So yeah, that worked very well for us. Unfortunately, the car had a electrical problem, and one day my dad's neighbor came out, "Mr. Snow, smoke's coming out of your car and whatnot," and it had an internal fire, and that was the end of it. State Farm wrote it off and whatnot.
But it was a beautiful car. I
was-
remember.
but it was a great
I
idea.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It put us on the map.
I'm sure.
Okay.
It was
I'm
a big
sure.
campaign.
The other thing I want to mention is that going back to the beginning of my dad, to get the going, he would do work for other jewelry stores. Would fix their watches and whatnot, and that was the other reason why they went into business for themselves and all. But we made that store on service, and you're in business too. Service, you got to give good service, because if you give bad service, it's the worst kind of advertisement you can get. You know? Yeah, so I just want to tell you that came out about, my dad used to say, we make, sell, and repair jewelry.
That's when you were in Hialeah.
And
Even now,
Yeah.
always.
Oh, yeah, even now.
always.
And now.
And one of the other things, Fred, was like, I remember my dad would say, people would come in, say it was my age, and he would sell them something. Now, those children of those people are coming in and we're selling them. Okay? So it's a generation thing. We're selling even the second and third generation of the first generation of our customers.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you treat customers well, and
We do our best.
Come
when
back.
you
We
do,
do our best.
what is
Yeah.
right for them, and whatever they do, come back
Yeah.
and keep coming back for years.
Now
and
we
years.
go out of our way for a couple $100 to thousands of dollars to please the customer. I know.
All right, so now with Mother's Day coming up, I know you guys are going to have something special. If you want to talk a little bit about that, I know that you have an open house coming up on the 3rd, this coming Wednesday,
Yeah.
celebrating your 40th year here on Main Street.
Right.
Let me tell you, it is an accomplishment. It's a great accomplishment,
Yeah.
to be actually the oldest tenant,
Yes.
on
Thank
Main
you.
Street, with all the changes that we have seen in the
Oh,
last
yeah.
40 years.
Yeah.
People come and going, and then you guys
still
are still
here.
there like clockwork,
We're still here.
which is great. So what's happening on Mother's Day, for Mother's Day? What can people go there and see? And
So Mother's Day, we're going to have our jewelry trunk show. Some people don't know what a trunk show is. So that's basically when we have one of our vendors come in with a lot of inventory, extra inventory, more than we could possibly carry in our store at one time. And basically it's a chance to buy. It's a jewelry show. So whatever you see, it's available for that day only. And you can buy it with a special price. So it may be some things that you've never seen. It may be something that we never carry. It's just a unique chance to buy something. And of course, we would have our inventory out as well. And so our sales rep for the two lines that I mentioned, Tacento and Shy Collection, she'll be on site that day,
That
all
will be
day.
on the 3rd.
No,
No, the 6th.
that is
On the
on
6th. That's
a
Saturday,
Saturday.
May
Oh, okay,
6th,
yeah, for
from
Mother's Day.
11 to 5. Yeah, 11 to 5. But the event on Wednesday, the 3rd, is from 5 to 7:30. That's just a celebration party. We're going to revisit our history that we talked about earlier here. It's going to be on display. We'll have some old memorabilia from back when my grandparents were around, the old Rolls Royce campaign.
That's wonderful.
We'll have food, drinks, and it's just going to be a good time.
Well, we're going to be there with you
Yeah.
guys to celebrate
Thank you.
all the accomplishments and to celebrate your business and
Right.
Yeah.
and your family. So, Marissa, you got married
I did.
last
a year
year?
ago.
Last
yeah.
year. Yeah.
It's been a year now.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Nice,
Yeah.
nice gentleman.
Yes.
I've
You
talked
know
to him
him?
a few times. Yeah. We
Yeah.
did a golf tournament with him.
Yes,
now we're
and we
getting
got
ready
another
to
one
do
coming up.
another one
Mhm.
coming up in this
In
month
2
of May.
weeks.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. I think that the purpose of this podcast is to introduce to all the audience, the local business, and that way you can get to know them,
Yeah.
a little better. So we thank you for taking the time and
Thank you.
accepting our invitation
I appreciate it.
to be here. It's really an honor, to see you here and to spend some time with you. We'll welcome you back, soon, I'm sure. I'm
Thank
sure.
you.
So there you have it, folks. Until next time, this is the Miami Lakes Business Podcast.